"Ma'am, don't answer that call." That's what the man said on the other end of the line, his voice low, rushed and trembling like he was afraid someone might hear him. It was nearly midnight, and the old house was quiet except for the slow ticking of the clock in the hallway. I looked down at the phone glowing on my nightstand. Robert Walker. That name shouldn't have been there. My husband's phone had been buried with him 2 years ago, down at Magnolia Hills Cemetery. But there it was, clear as day, Robert Walker calling. "My name is Eleanor Grace Walker, though most folks here in Savannah just call me Miss Ellie. I'm 74 years old, retired after 40 years of patching up people as a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital. I've seen enough birth, pain, and dying to fill 10 lifetimes. My hands aren't as steady as they used to be, but my mind is sharp, sharper than most give me credit for. And when something feels wrong, I can smell it before it happens. Tonight, that smell was back. The same faint scent of motor oil and rain that clung to Robert the night he never came home. Tell me in the comments what city you're watching this from," I whisper, half to calm myself, half out of habit. I want to know how far our stories travel. You listen to me now, sweetheart, because what I'm about to tell you isn't some ghost story or late-night imagination. It's real. As real as the breath I took when that old phone rang again and made my heart stumble. I sat there for a few seconds, frozen, watching his name flash across the screen like it was mocking me. I could almost hear his laugh, that deep, rough sound that used to shake the windows when he told a story. My first thought was maybe someone had stolen the number. Maybe some scammer was at it again. But then that voice whispered those words, "Ma'am, don't answer that call." And right after that, the line went dead. No click, no goodbye, just silence, thick enough to taste. I turned on the lamp. The storm outside had been rumbling all evening, and the window pane rattled with every gust. Savannah storms carry memories. You can smell the salt from the river, the damp moss hanging heavy in the air. I got out of bed and went to the dresser where I keep Robert's things. His old badge from the fire department, the watch he wore every day for 30 years, and a folded letter I still can't bring myself to finish reading. He was supposed to pick me up that night. He never showed. They said the truck skidded off the bridge. Mechanical failure, quick death, closed case. But here's the part that never sat right with me. Robert's truck was found miles away from where he was supposed to be, and his phone, the same one I was looking at now, had disappeared from evidence before the funeral. Claire, our daughter, said the police must have misplaced it. I let it go. I was tired, broken, and grief makes you small. I thought burying what was left of him would bury the questions too. I was wrong. The phone stopped ringing, but the light stayed on, faint, flickering. I picked it up. It was cold, too cold for something that had been inside my house all this time. The wallpaper reflected the glow, turning the room into a pale blue box. "Robert?" I whispered, knowing full well I wouldn't get an answer. And yet, from somewhere down the hall, I heard the faintest echo, like someone shutting a door very softly. That was when I realized I wasn't alone in the house. Now don't go thinking I panicked. I may be 74, but I'm not the kind of woman who freezes. I reached for the baseball bat behind the door, old habit from when Robert worked night shifts, and made my way toward the sound. The hallway smelled of rain and something metallic. When I reached the living room, the porch light flickered on by itself. Lightning flashed, and for a split second, I saw a shadow outside, tall, broad-shouldered, standing by the gate. My heart jumped, but the shape didn't move, just stood there watching. Then the thunder came, and the figure was gone. I locked the door, drew the curtains, and went straight for my old landline. Not the cell, not that cursed glowing thing. I dialed Linda Mayfield, my next-door neighbor and best friend since nursing school. She runs the neighborhood watch, and she's the kind of woman who sleeps with a flashlight under her pillow. "Linda," I said, voice shaking just a little. "You up?" "I am now," she grumbled. "What's wrong, Ellie?" Robert's phone rang. The silence on the line lasted long enough for me to hear her breathe in. "Ellie, that phone was buried." "I know. You sure it was that phone?" "Linda, I've been married 48 years. I know my husband's number." She exhaled slowly. "I'm coming over." I told her not to. The storm was too strong. But she never did listen when she thought I was in trouble. By the time she arrived, flashlight in hand and hair soaked from the rain, the glow on the phone had faded. It just sat there, dark and still, like nothing had happened. Linda picked it up with a dish towel and frowned. "No SIM card," she said. "No battery either. What the hell, Ellie?" I didn't have an answer. All I could think about was that voice. "Ma'am, don't answer that call." Who said it? How did they know to warn me? And why, after 2 years, was this phone still finding its way back to me? Linda stayed until almost 3 in the morning. We drank instant coffee, watched the storm roll over the river, and tried to make sense of it. She thought maybe someone was playing a sick joke. Maybe that man Claire works for, Alan Cooper, had something to do with it. "You said he's been pressuring her to sell your house, right?" she reminded me. "That man's got the ethics of a snake." Claire had come by last week, papers in hand, asking me to sign just a few forms to transfer ownership for tax purposes. I'd laughed and told her she must take me for a fool. Robert and I built this house brick by brick. No one was taking it from me, not after everything. But that conversation, combined with tonight, stirred a thought I didn't like. What if Robert had found something out before he died? Something worth silencing? By dawn, Linda finally left, promising to call Detective Henson, the one who handled Robert's accident. I told her not to bother. He hadn't believed me before. But she said, "Maybe he will this time. People get conscience in old age." Bless her heart for still having faith in people. I tried to sleep but couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the faint ring again, distant but steady, like an echo from under the ground. I got up, brewed another pot of coffee, and sat at the kitchen table. The morning light spilled through the blinds, and the world looked almost normal again. Almost. That's when I noticed muddy footprints near the back door. Not mine. Too big. Too fresh. The doormat was flipped, and the latch was undone. Someone had been inside my house. I followed the trail, 3 prints leading to the pantry, and stopping there. Nothing was missing, but one thing was out of place. The small wooden box Robert used to keep his old service medals. The lid was open. Inside, next to the medals, was a folded scrap of paper. My name was written across it in handwriting I hadn't seen in 2 years. I sat down before unfolding it. The paper trembled in my hands, though maybe it was just me. The note was short, just 8 words, scrawled quick, like someone didn't have time to finish. "Ellie, they know. Don't trust our daughter." I read it once, then again. The coffee went cold in front of me, and the world tilted sideways. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I thought about Claire's visits, her new car, the sudden trips to Atlanta she never explained. I thought about the man in the shadows by my gate. And I thought about that phone, glowing blue like a warning light from the grave. By the time the sun fully rose, I had made up my mind. If Robert was trying to tell me something, I was damn well going to listen. I grabbed my purse, tucked the note inside, and slipped the phone into the side pocket. I didn't know where to start, the police, the cemetery, or Claire's office, but I knew one thing. I wasn't waiting for another midnight call. When I stepped onto the porch, the air was thick and quiet, the kind of silence that holds its breath before something breaks. Across the street, a black sedan I didn't recognize sat idling. The driver was wearing sunglasses even though the sun hadn't yet cleared the trees. I took one step forward, and the car rolled away slow, turning the corner without a sound. Inside my bag, Robert's phone vibrated once. No ringtone, no display, just one long shiver through the leather. And then, faint and distant, came that same voice again, not through the phone, not through any speaker, but right behind me. "Ma'am, I told you not to answer." I barely slept that night. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw the words from that note glowing in the dark. "Don't trust our daughter." The letters seemed to move, like ink refusing to stay still. By morning, I'd convinced myself I'd dreamt half of it, but the paper in my robe pocket said otherwise. When the first light broke through the shutters, I knew I wasn't imagining any of this. Someone had been in my house. And Robert, well, somehow he was trying to tell me something. The kettle hissed on the stove as I spread the note on the table. Coffee always helped me think. 40 years as a nurse taught me that caffeine and clear minds go hand in hand. My hands shook a little, but not from fear. I was angry. Angry at being treated like an old fool, angry that my daughter might be mixed up in something ugly, and angry that my husband's memory wouldn't rest until I found the truth. "Good Lord," I whispered. "You'd think I'd earned some peace by now." I looked around the kitchen, every inch familiar. The pale yellow curtains I sewed myself, Robert's firefighter cap hanging by the window, the wooden clock that ticked too loud when the house was quiet. It was our life, and now it felt invaded. Before I could take my first sip of coffee, my phone buzzed. Not the old phone, his phone, but my own. It was Detective Paul Henson. Linda must have called him like she promised. "Morning, Miss Walker," he said in that steady voice of his, half polite, half guarded. "Linda told me about your, incident." "Incident?" I repeated. "You mean the part where my dead husband called me, or the part where someone broke into my home?" He paused. "Let's start with the break-in. Did they take anything?" "Not a thing," I said. "But they left something. A note." Another pause, longer this time. "You still have it?" "Right in front of me." "I'd like to come take a look. You home?" "Where else would I be at 7 a.m.?" I muttered. He sighed, the kind of sigh that says he's not sure he wants to reopen an old wound. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. I poured him a cup when he arrived because hospitality is the one thing no one's taking from me. He was younger than I remembered, or maybe grief just makes everyone look fresher when you're the one who aged overnight. He still wore the same leather jacket and kept his badge tucked low, like he didn't want to remind anyone he had authority. He took the note carefully with gloved fingers. "Looks like your husband's handwriting," he said. "Because it is," I replied. He nodded but didn't meet my eyes. "Miss Walker, I have to tell you, the forensics back then were lazy," I interrupted. "You said his brakes failed, but the mechanic said those brakes were new. I read that report myself." He cleared his throat. "We did what we could with what we had." "And now?" I asked, leaning in. "What do we have, Detective?" He hesitated. "We have a lot of strange coincidences, that phone being one of them." I led him to the drawer where I'd put Robert's phone. He examined it, turning it over like a relic. "No SIM card, no battery," he murmured. "Yet you say it rang. You think I'd make that up?" "No, ma'am. I just don't have a good explanation." "Well, Detective, maybe you don't need an explanation. Maybe you just need to look where you didn't before." He cracked a half smile. "You haven't changed, Miss Walker." Thank God for that. He promised to send the phone to the lab, just to be sure, though I could see he didn't believe half of what he was saying. Still, I let him take it. What mattered now was the note. That handwriting. Those words. That was real. When he left, I called my grandson, Ethan. The boy's voice always lifted my spirits. "Grandma, you okay?" he asked the second he picked up. "I'm fine, sugar. Just been thinking about your grandpa again." He sighed. "Mom's been acting weird, you know. Always on the phone whispering. She even told me not to visit you this weekend. Said you needed space." "Did she now?" "Yeah, and I told her that's nonsense. I'll be there after class tomorrow." "Don't mention it to her yet," I said softly. "Let's keep it our little secret, all right?" He laughed. "Grandma, you sound like a spy." "Maybe I am," I said, and smiled for the first time that day. By noon the sun was sharp, the kind that bleaches the color out of everything. I decided to take a walk to clear my head. Savannah mornings smell like damp earth and magnolia. It's impossible to stay angry for long, but halfway down the block, I noticed something that made me stop cold. A black sedan, same as the one from the night before, was parked near the corner again. Windows tinted, engine running. I crossed the street slow, pretending to check my mail. The car didn't move, but I saw the outline of a man inside, phone to his ear, facing me. I memorized his plate number before walking back home. When I stepped onto the porch, Claire was there, waiting. Perfect hair, sunglasses on, even though the sun wasn't that bright. "Mom," she said, smiling too wide. I was just about to knock. "Well, isn't that a miracle?" I replied, holding the screen door open. "Come on in. Coffee's still warm." She followed me in, her perfume thick as roses left too long in water. I wanted to check on you, she began. I heard from Linda that you had a strange night. I raised an eyebrow. Word travels fast in this town. Mom, I'm serious. You've been alone too long. Sometimes grief— Don't start that, I cut her off. I'm old, not delusional. She sighed, setting her purse on the table. Fine. But if you ever feel unsafe, you could always move in with me and Alan. We've got the space. Oh, I'll bet you do, I said, folding my arms. Plenty of room for my house too once you sell it. Her eyes flashed just for a second. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said lightly. Just thinking out loud. She gave a quick laugh that didn't reach her eyes. You always were suspicious. And you always were too good at pretending. Her smile faltered. For a moment the mask slipped, and I saw it. Guilt, fear, maybe both. Then she gathered herself. I just want you safe, Mom. Then stop lying to me, I said quietly. Her mouth opened like she wanted to speak, but the sound that came wasn't words. It was my landline ringing. Not my cell. The landline. That phone hasn't rung in months. I reached for it, but she beat me to it. Don't, I started. She answered. Hello? Silence. Her eyes widened, color draining from her face. Who is this? She whispered. Then her hand trembled, and she slammed the receiver down. I stared at her. Who was it? Nobody, she said too quickly. Wrong number. Before I could press, she grabbed her purse. I have to go. And she was gone before the screen door even stopped swinging. The house went quiet again, except for the old clock ticking like a heartbeat. I stood there, hand still on the phone. It rang once more, just one short pulse, like a breath between words. I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I went to the window. The black sedan was still parked down the street, and through the shimmer of the afternoon heat, I saw Claire walk right up to it and get in. The car pulled away, leaving only the faint smell of exhaust and 1,000 new questions sitting heavy in my chest. Somewhere in that silence, the phone clicked again, lighting up just once. A single message flashing across the small screen. He didn't die in the crash. I stood by that window for a long time after the car disappeared, my reflection trembling in the glass like it didn't want to belong to me anymore. The street looked quiet again. Too quiet for what I'd just seen. Claire, my own daughter, slipping into that same black sedan that had been watching my house since last night. No wave, no hesitation, no explanation. Just gone. I knew I shouldn't jump to conclusions, but at 74, instincts are all you have left when people think you've lost your edge. And my gut was screaming that whatever happened to Robert wasn't an accident, and my daughter knew more than she'd ever told me. I made myself sit down, my knees cracking in protest. The landline was still there on the table, the receiver slightly crooked from when she dropped it. I stared at it, half expecting it to ring again. That one short pulse still echoed in my mind. He didn't die in the crash. Those words weren't just some message. They were a promise that the past wasn't finished with me yet. I took a breath and dialed Linda. She answered on the second ring. Ellie, tell me you're okay. Define okay, I said. Claire was just here. And guess who came to pick her up? A black sedan, same one that's been sitting on my street for 2 days. There was a pause. You think she's in trouble? I think she's trouble. But I don't know which kind yet. Linda sighed. I'll ask around. You know half this town owes me favors. That's why I called you, I said, glancing at the note still pinned to the fridge by a magnet shaped like a peach. And Linda, if I don't pick up later, promise me you'll check in. Don't talk like that, she snapped. You're not going anywhere. Neither is the truth, I muttered, mostly to myself. When we hung up, I poured another cup of coffee, though my stomach was too tight to drink it. I looked at Robert's photo on the wall, him in his fire department uniform, proud and alive, the world still believing he'd always make it home. I touched the edge of the frame. If you're out there, love, I whispered, just give me a sign I'm not crazy. The house answered with a creak from the hallway. Then, faintly, the hum of the refrigerator. Nothing else. Around noon, Detective Henson called. Miss Walker, we checked the phone. You were right. No battery, no SIM. But it's been powered on at least once in the last 24 hours. That's impossible, I said. Unless ghosts use chargers now. He chuckled nervously. Our tech thinks someone tampered with it. Maybe replaced the internals, used it as a relay for another number. It's sophisticated, not some prank. So someone used my husband's phone to reach me? Looks that way. I gripped the receiver tighter. Detective, whoever it is, they know things. They knew about my daughter. He hesitated. I remember your husband was looking into some property deals before he died. Something about a real estate developer buying up houses near the river? Yes, I said, my pulse quickening. Claire works for that developer now, a man named Alan Cooper. Cooper, he repeated. Yeah, that name's come up before. What kind of before? He didn't answer right away. Let's just say he's made enemies. And if your husband stumbled onto something he shouldn't have. The words trailed off, but I didn't need him to finish. I'd seen enough secrets in my time to know how they rot from the inside out. After we hung up, I went to the back porch. The air was heavy, the kind that smells like thunder long before it rains. I saw tire tracks near my fence, fresh ones. Someone had been there, close enough to see through my kitchen window. I snapped a picture with my phone and sent it to Henson. Then I heard it again, that faint vibration from inside my purse. I froze. The old phone, the one that shouldn't even work, was glowing faintly blue, as if waking up. I reached in, my fingers trembling. The screen lit up just enough to show one word. Listen. Then static filled the speaker. I held it closer. Through the hiss, I heard a man's voice, weak, broken, familiar. Ellie, if you get this, they're watching Claire. Don't trust. And then it cut off. I stared at the phone, my chest tight. It couldn't be Robert? Could it? The voice was his, but distorted, like it was echoing through water. I tried calling the number back, but the screen went black, dead again. I sat there for a moment, frozen, the weight of what I'd heard pressing down. If that was Robert's voice, then either someone had a cruel sense of humor, or the truth about his death was far darker than I ever imagined. By the time evening came, the sky opened up with rain. I closed all the curtains and double-locked the doors. The house felt smaller with every drop hitting the windows. I was sitting by the fireplace, the note on my lap, when I heard a soft knock at the door. 3 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. I took my time getting up. Who is it? It's me, came a voice, Ethan. Relief washed over me as I opened the door. My grandson stood there, soaked from the rain, backpack slung over one shoulder. Grandma, he said, breathless. Mom told me you were sick, but you look fine. I am fine, I said, pulling him inside. She told you that? He nodded. She's been acting strange, always texting that Cooper guy, whispering about money. And when I asked about Grandpa, she told me to drop it. I felt my throat tighten. You did good telling me that, baby. He smiled faintly. You always call me baby when you're hiding something. Smart boy. Just like his grandpa. We sat at the table, and I told him only part of the truth, that someone was trying to scare me, that maybe they wanted something Robert left behind. I didn't tell him about the voice. Not yet. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Whatever this is, Grandma, I'll help you. And then he said something that made my heart stop cold. Because last week, he whispered, someone came to my college asking questions about Grandpa's accident, said they were from the insurance company, but they showed me a picture of you. A picture of me? I asked. He nodded. Yeah, and they said, if your grandma calls, don't believe what she says. Thunder rolled outside, shaking the window glass. I looked at him, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan, did you tell them where I live? He swallowed hard. I think they already knew. And then, from somewhere deep in the house, my phone rang again. The old one. 3 sharp tones. Same voice. Eleanor, they're coming tonight. The sound of that voice again, low, urgent, and cracked by fear, made my blood run cold. They're coming tonight. I didn't wait for the line to die this time. I ended the call myself and dropped the phone onto the table like it was something alive. The rain outside had grown harder, slamming against the windows as if the sky was trying to warn me too. Ethan looked at me, his face pale as candle wax. Grandma, he whispered. What does that mean? Who's coming? I took a deep breath, forcing my voice steady. It means your grandpa was right about something. And somebody doesn't want us finding out what. Ethan glanced toward the door like he expected someone to kick it in. He was still just a boy in my eyes, no matter how tall he'd grown. I couldn't let fear own him. "Go lock the back door," I said, "then close the curtains in the living room." He moved fast. His hands trembled, but he did as I asked. I took the note from the fridge and tucked it into the inside pocket of my cardigan. I didn't know if it was real, but it was all I had left of Robert's voice. The house felt smaller with every step I took, the hum of the refrigerator mixing with the pounding of my heart. When Ethan came back, I pulled out my old revolver from the drawer under the sink. It hadn't been fired in years, but I kept it oiled, just in case. "You still remember how to use the phone on the wall?" I asked. He nodded. "Landline, right? That's the one. If anything happens, you call Detective Henson. You tell him they're here." "Who's they?" he asked. I looked out the window, where headlights flashed briefly and then went dark. "The kind of people who hide behind nice suits and expensive cars." He frowned. "You mean Cooper?" "I mean whoever Cooper answers to." The clock struck 8. The wind rattled the roof. I felt Robert's presence stronger than ever, like he was standing right behind me, whispering the way he used to before leaving for a night shift. "Keep the porch light on, Ellie. I'll be home before you know it." I turned on the porch light. It didn't take long. Within minutes, I saw a pair of shadows moving near the fence. 2 men, dark coats, no umbrellas. They were talking quietly, one of them holding something small that gleamed when the lightning flashed. Ethan gasped. "Grandma!" I put a finger to my lips. "Stay back." We crouched low by the window. I watched as the men split up, one circling toward the back, the other heading for the porch. My pulse slowed, not quickened. Years of hospital chaos had taught me one thing: panic helps no one. The first knock came soft, 3 times, deliberate. Not the way neighbors knock. I motioned for Ethan to stay quiet. The second knock was louder. Then a voice, smooth, rehearsed. "Mrs. Walker? Savannah Police. We received a report of suspicious activity." I almost laughed. "Suspicious activity, my foot," I muttered. "You are the suspicious activity." I waited. He knocked again. "Ma'am, this is official business. Please open the door." I whispered to Ethan. "Go to the kitchen, get my phone. Quiet." He nodded and disappeared into the dark. I grabbed the revolver and eased it up beside me. The porch light flickered once, twice, then died completely. Darkness swallowed the front yard. My stomach dropped. That light was wired to a separate circuit. Someone had cut it on purpose. Then, from the back of the house, came the sound of a latch snapping. I turned fast. Ethan was there, frozen in the doorway. Behind him, the back door creaked open, pushed by the wind. "Grandma," he whispered. "Down!" I shouted. The next second, a beam of light sliced through the kitchen window, flashlight sweeping across the counter. I fired once into the ceiling. The sound roared through the house like thunder. "Next one won't miss," I yelled. The flashlight vanished. Footsteps scrambled outside. A car engine started. I waited until the sound faded down the street before lowering the gun. Ethan's hands were shaking. "Grandma, you just scared them off." "Good," I said, slipping the revolver onto the counter. "Now they know I'm not the kind of old lady who waits to be scared." He managed a shaky laugh. "Remind me never to sneak in after curfew." I hugged him tight, my heartbeat thudding against his. "You're safe, baby. That's what matters." After a few minutes, I called Detective Henson. He answered on the first ring. "What happened?" I told him everything. The fake police, the flashlight, the cut power. He didn't sound surprised. "They're sending a message," he said. "They want you to back off." "Then they picked the wrong woman," I replied. He sighed. "Ellie, listen. There's more you should know. That developer, Alan Cooper, his company's been under investigation for months. Illegal acquisitions, false insurance claims, even arson. And your husband's name came up once, right before the accident." "Arson?" I repeated. "You mean fires?" "Yes. Small ones, made to look like accidents. Robert may have found out one of those fires wasn't so small. We think he tried to report it. The night he died, he called someone from his truck, but the call never went through." I felt the blood drain from my face. "He called me that night," I whispered, but the line was full of static. I thought it was just bad reception. Henson was quiet for a long moment. Ellie, I need you to come down to the station tomorrow. Bring the note, any messages you've gotten. And don't stay alone tonight. I've got Ethan, I said firmly, and I've got my revolver. That's good, he said. But keep your doors locked. These people don't play by rules. After we hung up, I made Ethan a sandwich, because fear hits softer when there's food on the table. He ate in silence, still glancing toward the windows. I watched the rain ease into a steady drizzle. Grandma, he said after a while, do you think Grandpa's really gone? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to tell him that the dead don't come back, that voices can't reach across years. But the truth sat heavy in my throat. I think sometimes, I said slowly, love leaves a trail even death can't erase. He nodded, trying to understand. Later that night, after he'd fallen asleep on the couch, I went to the porch. The air was cool, clean after the storm. I could see the reflection of the streetlights in puddles along the road. And there, half hidden in the grass by the mailbox, something metal caught the light. I bent down and picked it up. A key. Not just any key, a fire department locker key, number 47, engraved on the side. Robert's number. I turned it over in my hand, heart pounding. It was damp but warm, like someone had placed it there just moments before. I looked up and down the street, but no one was there. Only the whisper of the wind through the moss. And then, faint as breath, I heard it. Robert's voice again, carried on the rain-soaked air. Ellie, check the locker. By morning the storm had rinsed Savannah clean, but it hadn't washed the fear out of my bones. I held that locker key the way a preacher holds scripture, tight enough to leave a mark, because numbers don't lie, and 47 had always been Robert's. I brewed coffee strong enough to stand a spoon and set a plate of buttered toast in front of Ethan, even though neither of us had much appetite. My mind kept circling the same questions. Who left the key? Why now? And what would I find if I dared to turn it? I told Ethan we were going to the old engine house on Whitaker, Station 2, the place Robert called his second home. He started to argue, then saw my face and swallowed his words. Okay, Grandma, he said, shouldering his backpack like a soldier. We do it your way. Tell me in the comments what city you're watching this from. I say, for those of you listening, voice low so you lean in. I want to know how far courage travels when fear thinks it has the road to itself. You just listen to me now, sweetheart, because what happened next took more grit than I had right to own at 74, and I used every ounce of it like it was the last flower in my pantry. We left the house just after 8. Linda texted, "Be careful," with 3 flashing light emojis, because she doesn't know how to whisper even on a phone. I slipped the note, "Don't trust our daughter," into my cardigan pocket and tucked Robert's phone, dead as it looked, into my purse. The air had that washed linen smell after rain, magnolia sweet with a slice of river salt. We walked the 2 blocks to Station 2 because I didn't want a plate number announcing where we'd gone. The brick building was squat and proud, the paint on the bay doors chipped by time. Through the high windows, I could see ladders stacked like ribs and the shadow of an old engine the city keeps for parade days. It was open hours later, but we weren't going in through the front. "Grandma," Ethan whispered. "This is breaking and entering." "This is remembering and entering," I said, trying not to smile. "And we're not breaking a thing." Around back, the chain-link gate hung a little crooked where time had won a small war. Robert used to joke that the lock had 3 combinations: official, parade, and Miss Ellie with donuts. I slid the chain up and we slipped through. My palms went slick. I knew this place by heart. The side door with the stiff hinge. The metal stairs that sang if you stepped on the 4th tread. The rider locker hall that carried the smell of smoke into your skin for hours. The hallway light flickered awake when we entered, buzzing like a nervous thought. We found the locker row quick. Same dent on the corner, same peeling sticker from the firefighter softball league. Number 47 was near the end. Red paint scuffed to a dull pink. I stood there for one long breath, thumb rubbing the key's teeth. Ethan watched my face like he was learning how to be brave just by memorizing it. "Ready?" I asked, more to Robert than the boy beside me. Then I slid the key in. The lock turned like it had been waiting. I opened the door and smelled cedar and old soap before I saw a thing. Inside, Robert had left it neat as church. 2 folded uniforms, a coil of rescue rope, a battered coffee thermos with Walker scratched into the side. But behind the thermos, taped to the back panel, was a manila envelope sealed with 2 strips of gray duct tape and a note in his sharp block letters. "If I don't make it, give this to E.M. Walker only." My heart thudded hard enough that the metal door vibrated under my hand. I peeled the tape slow. Inside were 3 things: a small black thumb drive, a spiral-bound pocket notebook with water-wrinkled edges, and a disposable flip phone with a cracked hinge. I handed the drive to Ethan. "Don't plug that into anything we own," I said. "Library first, public machine." Ethan nodded, eyes wide. "Grandpa left this for you." "For us," I corrected, "because courage is a family recipe if you let it be." The pocket notebook was dense with Robert's handwriting. Dates, intersections, initials. AC appeared more than once, and where it did, a little star glinted in the margin like he'd stabbed the page. Next to one date I read Warehouse Numbers 12, Riverfront, sprinklers offline by maintenance. Meeting at 10:15 p.m. Claire's office lights on. Alan arrives without escort. I felt something cold settle under my ribs. Ethan leaned closer. "Grandma, he wrote Mom's name." "I see it." My voice wanted to shake. I didn't let it. Reading isn't the same as knowing. I flipped pages. There were references to purchase option pressure, bridge detour timing, burn pattern too clean, and one line that made me grip the metal shelf hard enough to squeal it. "Cooper wants the house bundle. Claire promised delivery. Won't sign. Says leave Ellie to me." I closed my eyes. A woman can get knocked down by a sentence if it's written by the right hand. Ethan's jaw clenched. "So, Mom's involved?" "She's cornered," I said, because hope is also a habit. Cornered people make bad promises. What matters is what they do when the door opens. He looked away, jaw working. "I want to believe her." "I know." I slid the flip phone out with 2 fingers. Its battery light blinked once, as if waking. On the sticker under the battery, Robert had written a single number with a note. "Call only from outside. River pays attention." I didn't know what that meant, but I knew we weren't calling from here. Footsteps sounded at the far end of the hall. Heavy, unhurried, official. I snapped the locker shut and palmed the key, while Ethan tucked the envelope under his jacket. A uniform rounded the corner. Young, freckles, a mustache trying to be a beard. He stopped when he saw us. "Ma'am? Station's closed to the public this morning." "I'm not the public," I said, breath easy. I tapped the brass plaque on the wall with Robert's retirement photo. "I'm the widow of Walker 47. I brought donuts for the crew." He blinked. "The line has worked every decade I've tried it." Sure," he said, confused smile coming around. "You're Miss Ellie, right?" "That's the one." I nodded toward the bay. "I won't be a minute." He hesitated, then shrugged and kept walking, whistling like he'd been rewound. I exhaled slow. Ethan looked at me like I'd just pulled a rabbit out of a helmet. "Grandma," he whispered. "You're terrifying." "Practice," I said. "And donuts." We left through the side door into air that tasted like penny-cold water. At the corner, I pulled the flip phone battery, counted to 10, reseated it, and pressed power. It booted with a plain beep, no logo, no welcome, just numbers. I dialed the one Robert had written. The line clicked, then rang once, twice. "Yeah?" a woman said, voice clipped, tinny with distance. "This is Eleanor Walker," I said. "Robert's wife. He left your number." A beat. Paper rustled. "Prove it." "On your desk 20 years ago, he dropped coffee on your incident log and you told him he'd owe you for the rest of your career. He repaid you with lemon bars." I didn't forget gratitude. Not once, not ever. The breath on the line turned into a sigh. "Miss Walker, it's Brooks, Aaliyah Brooks. We spoke years back. I'm not with the DA anymore." "Then who are you with?" "The only group stubborn enough to pick fights with men like Cooper and stupid enough to keep losing until we don't." There was a smile in her voice that had learned to live without winning. "If you're calling, it means you found the locker." I did, and I have his notebook, and a drive. Her words sharpened. Do not read that drive at home. Find a clean machine. And Miss Walker, if you think you're being followed, you are. I glanced up Whitaker. A silver SUV idled half a block away, wipers ticking, driver speaking into his sleeve like he thought sleeves were secret. We're past thinking, I said. We're on to knowing. Good, Aaliyah said. Then meet me where Robert took you for your 40th anniversary. The bench with the Iron Angel. 1 hour. And don't bring your regular phone. The line went dead. I slid the flip shut and tucked it deep. Ethan shifted from foot to foot. Where's that bench? Bonaventure, I said, the word tasting like river wind and old stone. Under the angel with the chipped wing. We started walking. No hurry, just 2 shadows in daylight. My heart counted a metronome. 1. Trust the notes. 2. Read twice. 3. Speak once. At the corner, I looked back. The silver SUV eased from the curb. Grandma, Ethan murmured. They're tailing us. I know. I took his arm like I was just steadying my knees. Make them think we're slow. We turned onto a side street lined with oaks, Spanish moss trailing like lace from a dress you only wear to tell the truth. The SUV crept closer, patient as a spider. Ahead, a city bus groaned into a stop, the old route that skims the river and loops past the cemetery. The doors hissed open. Now, I said. We ran the way only love can make you run at my age, straight and sure. We climbed aboard as coins chimed and the driver's eyes widened at my speed. The doors sighed shut behind us and the bus pulled into traffic, folding us into the slow, blessed march of public movement. I took the last seat and let my lungs burn in peace. Ethan pressed his forehead to the window. We lost them, he said. Maybe, I answered, because hope is honest when it's careful. I reached into the envelope to touch the thumb drive, needing to feel proof under my fingers. My fingertips brushed plastic, square, cold, familiar. Then they brushed something else I hadn't seen before, wedged in the paper's seam. A folded photo. I opened it slow. Claire stood beside Alan Cooper, hand in his. Not a business handshake, a lover's clasp, dated the week before Robert died. And as the bus turned toward Bonaventure, a shadow fell over us, and a voice from the seat behind murmured in my ear, calm as a prayer and cold as a blade. Don't turn around, Mrs. Walker. Hand me the drive. My fingers froze around the envelope. The man's voice was quiet but hard as metal. Slowly, he said again, closer this time. I could smell the sharp mix of rain and tobacco on his coat. Ethan started to turn, but I pressed his knee under the seat. Don't. The bus rattled over the bridge, the sound of water below mixing with the hum of the engine. I looked straight ahead, heart steady. You must have the wrong lady, I said softly, the same tone I used on patients about to faint. I don't. He leaned forward just enough that I could see his reflection in the glass. Sunglasses, black cap, the kind of face you forget until it's too close. The drive, Mrs. Walker. I smiled faintly. You really think I'd keep something that important in my purse? He hesitated, just a blink, but a blink is all an old nurse needs. I dropped my cane between the seats and let it clatter, making the driver glance in the mirror. Everything okay back there? He called. Fine, I said quickly, reaching down. My hand brushed Ethan's backpack. In one motion, I slipped the drive inside and zipped it shut. Then I straightened, cane in hand again. Sorry, Butterfingers. The man's jaw tensed. Don't play games. I turned just enough to meet his glasses. Son, I've been playing games longer than you've been breathing. He opened his mouth to answer, but before a word came, the bus hissed to a stop at the next light. Without thinking twice, I grabbed Ethan's arm and shouted, "Next stop!" The driver pulled the lever. Doors whooshed open. We bolted out into the blinding Georgia sun. The man followed, but a delivery truck cut between us with a blast of its horn. I didn't run often anymore, but fear can lend you speed you forgot you owned. We ducked into a narrow alley behind a flower shop, the air thick with the scent of damp roses. Ethan's breathing came fast. "Who was that?" he gasped. "Somebody who thinks I scare easy." We crouched behind the trash bins until the sound of footsteps faded. When I peeked out again, the street looked normal. Tourists with cameras, a man selling boiled peanuts, the slow buzz of summer life pretending nothing bad ever happens. Ethan handed me the backpack. "What now?" "Now," I said, brushing dust off my coat. "We go see an angel." Bonaventure Cemetery was quiet as a held breath. The oaks dripped silver moss over the gravel paths, and the air was cooler under the trees. We followed the winding lane until the iron angel appeared, wings stretched, one feather chipped, just as Robert had described when he carved our initials beneath the bench all those years ago. Sitting there felt like sitting between worlds. I waited, watching the path, until a woman approached. Mid-30s, brown blazer, hair tied back, eyes sharp as a scalpel. Aaliyah Brooks. "You brought the boy," she said without surprise. "Good. He'll need to know what's coming." I handed her the envelope. "Robert trusted you." "And I'm trusting you now," she said, slipping the thumb drive into her pocket. "The data on this, property records, accident reports, audio memos, proves Cooper's company used controlled burns to erase debt and claim insurance. Your husband was compiling it. He died before he could send it to us." My throat went dry. "So the crash wasn't a crash," she said quietly. "It was a cleanup." Ethan's face went white. "Mom, does she know?" Aaliyah hesitated. She helped transfer ownership of the houses, but she didn't know what Cooper planned next. Once she tried to back out, he panicked. "That's why you're both in danger now." I felt anger rise like heat. "He killed my husband, and he's using my daughter." She nodded. "We'll expose him, but we need you to stay hidden for 48 hours while I decrypt the files." "Hidden?" I repeated. "You think after all this I'm just going to hide?" Aaliyah gave a faint smile. "Mrs. Walker, you don't strike me as the hiding kind. But staying alive, that's a strategy, not surrender." I looked out over the river beyond the graves, the water catching flashes of sun. "I've spent 2 years mourning a man who was murdered. I'm done being careful." Ethan touched my arm. "Grandma, please." Before he could finish, my phone buzzed again. Not the old one. My own. One new message from Claire. "Mom, please come home. They said if you don't, they'll hurt him." I stared at the screen, the words burning hotter than the sun. Ethan leaned closer. "Hurt who?" I swallowed hard. "Your mother's not talking about herself, sweetheart." He blinked. "Then who?" Aaliyah's voice cut in, sharp and urgent. "Don't answer that message. If they know where you are, they'll use her as bait." But it was too late, because before I could power off the phone, another message appeared. A photo, taken through the window of my kitchen. Linda, my oldest friend, tied to a chair. And under it, 5 words that made my heart stop. "Come alone, or she dies." The picture burned into my eyes so hard I could see it even when I blinked. Linda in my kitchen, wrists tied with something that looked like an extension cord, a dish towel gagged across her mouth, the clock over the stove frozen at 3:17 like time itself, refused to watch. 5 words under it, "Come alone, or she dies." I felt my heartbeat climb my throat, but fear didn't take the wheel. It never has, not in an ER at 2 a.m., not when Robert missed dinner, not now. Aaliyah swore under her breath and reached for the phone, but I pulled it back. "No," I said. "They texted me because they want me. If I don't move, they move first. And on her." "Ellie, listen to me," Aaliyah said, voice low, steady. "We don't give kidnappers what they want. We control the clock." "Then help me set it," I answered, lifting my chin. "Tell me in the comments what city you're watching this from. I say to you listening in your kitchens and cars. Because where I'm headed, I may need every prayer from every corner you've got. You just listen to me now, sweetheart. What comes next is not polite, not pretty, and not safe. But it's what justice looks like when it's down to bone." Aaliyah moved fast, all purpose and no panic. "Rule 1, you will not actually be alone," she said. "Rule 2, they must believe you are." She thumbed open her bag and laid out tools like a surgeon. 2 tiny mics, a button camera, a pebble-sized GPS that stuck like a seed under my collar. Ethan squeezed my hand till my knuckles popped. "Grandma, I'll go with you. You'll do the braver thing, I told him. You'll stay with Aaliyah and get Henson. If anything goes sideways, you live to tell it straight. He hated it. He nodded anyway. I texted back with hands that never shook. I'm coming. 30 minutes. Don't hurt her. A second later, alone, front door unlocked, phone on speaker. The audacity made my mouth taste like copper. Aaliyah's eyes flicked over my screen. Good, she murmured. They want a theater. We'll give them one. We split at the cemetery gate. Aaliyah and Ethan cut through the oaks toward her car to meet Henson 2 blocks off and stage surveillance. I took the bus back alone on purpose. A gray-haired woman with a tote bag and a spine they never saw coming. Every bump of the road beat a rhythm. Not today, not my friend, not my house. At my stop, I stepped into heat that pressed like a hand on the back of my neck. The neighborhood looked ordinary, sprinklers hissing, a dog asleep on a porch, cicadas busy with their choir. Ordinary is a mask trouble wears when it wants to be polite about ruining you. I walked slow, like I'd promised to come easy. The front door stood ajar 2 inches. I could smell lemon cleaner and fear. Phone on speaker, the text had said. Fine. I set my cell on the console table inside the foyer and pressed speaker. I'm home, I said to the empty air. The reply came smooth, almost kind. Welcome back, Mrs. Walker. The voice I'd been waiting to hate. Alan Cooper. I could hear faint traffic under his words. He wasn't inside. Puppet strings from a safe distance. If you've hurt my friend, I said, you'll meet the kind of mercy they don't teach in Sunday school. A chuckle. Open the kitchen door. I walked down the hall, shoes whispering over rugs I'd vacuumed yesterday morning like life would always be this clean. The kitchen door was shut, which it never is. I paused, let my hand hover over the knob, then glanced at the tiny lens nested in the brooch on my collar. Watch me. I prayed to the line that tied me to Aaliyah and Henson, like a lifeline. I opened the door. Linda sat where the photo said she would, the chair wedged against the table leg so it wouldn't tip. Her eyes were wild but unbroken. She'd been cussing behind that gag. I knew it. I stepped in slow, palms up. I'm here, sugar, I said. Voice soft, so only she and the mic could love it. I've got you. Stop there. Cooper's voice again from the counter this time, my landline on speaker, angled toward us. We both know you didn't come alone. Say the word and your helpers will leave. You want silence? I said. Come earn it. A pause. Paper shuffled somewhere far away. You always were difficult. That's my obituary headline, I said, inching forward. I saw it then, the tripwire slack as a lazy snake, stretched ankle-high between chair leg and cabinet. Another wire climbed the table leg to the underside where a small black box sat blinking. Not big enough to blast a wall. Big enough to shatter hands. Nurses don't freeze, we triage. I raised my voice like I was scolding a boy rifling the cookie jar. Alan, I'm going to step between my friend and your toy. If it blows me. I'll bleed slow to prove a point on your live little circle. He inhaled. You're not in charge here, Mrs. Walker. Neither are you, I said, and took one firm step over the wire. No explosion. The box blinked on, off, like an eye that wanted sleep. I moved behind Linda and pressed my shoulder into hers so she could feel the weight of me. It's me, I whispered into her hair. Breathe. Her laugh shook the towel. Good girl. Here's how this ends, Cooper said, and now the warmth was gone. You bring the drive to Claire's office. You sign the deed transfer. You move out by noon tomorrow. In exchange, your friend leaves breathing. Deal? So that was the theater. Make me choose between a house and a heartbeat. He didn't know me at all. Alan, I said softly, look out your window. Silence, then, what? Go on, I said. Tell me if you like the color blue. A siren wailed in the distance, one, then another, growing, converging. I didn't smile. I did let myself breathe. Aaliyah's whisper slid into my ear from the button mic, so faint it could have been conscience. We have his tower ping. Henson's en route. Cooper's tone changed. The mask slipped. You clever old... Something clicked behind me. Metal, close. Breath, closer. A voice that broke me in half said, right at my shoulder, barely louder than a prayer, "Mom, don't move. Mom, don't move." Claire's voice, close enough that I could feel her breath at my neck, sent a tremor down my spine I refused to show. Linda's eyes flashed to mine over the gag. I gave the tiniest nod, hold steady. On the counter, the landline speaker kept Alan Cooper's thin patience humming like a fly at a window. "Claire," I said, calm as a waiting room. "If you're holding anything sharp, put it on the table, nice and quiet." A soft clink. Metal meeting wood. Then the whisper of her heels shifting. "I told him this was too far," she said, voice raw, like she'd been crying longer than she'd been talking. "He said you wouldn't listen unless you were scared." "I listen to truth," I said. "And I listen to you. Right now." I angled my shoulder deeper into Linda's, making a small wall between her and the little black box blinking under the table. I could see the tripwire again, slack but waiting, and I could see Claire's hands, trembling, empty. On the speaker, Alan tried for friendly. "Good. Mother and daughter together. Mrs. Walker, the terms haven't changed." I ignored him. "Claire, look at me," I said. She didn't. Her gaze stuck to the floor, shame heavy as wet wool. "Baby, lift your eyes." She did, and I saw the little girl who used to bring me dandelions in a jelly jar. I never meant for this," she said. "I told him we'd convince you about the deed. That's all. Then the warehouse. And Dad, and—" Her voice cracked. She pressed her knuckles to her mouth. "Breathe," I told her. Same word I'd given 100 patients and one terrified firefighter the night a roof caved and hope felt smaller than a match. "Now listen. You're walking out of this house with me and with Linda. But first, you're going to show me the off switch." Claire blinked. "The what?" "The thing under the table." I kept my tone light as saucepan steam. "The toy your friend left. Where's its heartbeat?" She crouched slowly, slid her hand along the table edge without touching the wire. "Here," she whispered, pointing to a small toggle on the black box. "It's armed by pressure and sound. If we bump the leg or shout, it—" She swallowed. "It goes. Then we won't bump and we won't shout," I said, meeting her eyes. "On 3, I'm lifting the chair just enough to clear the wire. You, sweet girl, will flip that switch like you're turning down the radio so you can hear God better. Ready?" She nodded, tears slick on her lashes. "Alan," I called, sweet as pie. "We're going to tidy your mess now. Do hold, won't you?" Dead air on the line, then, "Don't touch." 1, I said, more to Linda's backbone than to the room. 2. My hand slid under the chair back, feeling the weight of my oldest friend and the years we carried together. 3. I lifted just enough. Claire reached. A tiny click. The blinking light steadied, then went black. We didn't breathe for a full count of 5. Then Linda made a sound that was half sob, half swear. I cut the gag, tugged the cords loose, and she gasped, "If you ever make me sit through your dramatics again, I'm charging admission." "I'll sell lemonade at the door," I said. And the laugh that jumped out of both of us tasted like relief we hadn't earned yet. The line crackled. "Very brave," Alan said, all honey gone. "Now the drive, Mrs. Walker. At Claire's office. 10 minutes. 10 minutes! Linda rasped, defiant now that blood had returned to her hands. "Tell your watch it's drunk." I held up a finger. "Let me steer." "Alan," I said, "you keep sending boys and pictures. Try a woman with a badge next time." A long exhale. Then, almost bored. "You think the police will help you? Ms. Brooks lost her job for chasing ghosts. Henson is tired, and you, Mrs. Walker, are one old heartbeat with a leaky house." A pause. Tick. Tock. The line went dead. Silence swelled, full as thunder before it breaks. I helped Linda to her feet. Claire wiped her cheeks with the heel of her hand and finally met my eyes without flinching. "He has people watching the street," she said. "2 cars. They won't follow me if they think I'm still inside." "Then you're not leaving by the street," I said, already moving. "Back hall, pantry, crawl space hatch, the one Robert fixed and told me never to mention." Linda snorted. "You? Not mention something? Miracles do happen." We moved like we'd rehearsed it. 3 women who'd done harder dances than this in different rooms of our lives. I sent a whisper through the mic. Aaliyah, he cut the call. Device disarmed. We need an exit that looks like we never existed. Her answer came low, urgent. Front yard is watched. Back alley clear for 30 seconds, then a white van will block the view. Henson's 2 minutes out. If Claire has anything on her that ties to Cooper, take it. I turned to my daughter. Phone. She hesitated, then handed it over. I slid it into the microwave and hit 30 seconds. A poor woman's Faraday. The display buzzed and died. We'll buy you a new one, I said, with a conscience. Claire almost smiled. Almost. We ducked through the pantry to the hatch. The wood complained. I told it to hush like a child in church and lifted the square enough for Linda to slide through, then Claire. Before I followed, I reached under the sink, found the old jar of carpenter's chalk, and drew a quick, rough cross on the inside of the cabinet door. Robert's signal that said done, safe, go. It wasn't magic. It felt like it anyway. We moved in a crouch along the crawl space, dust and cool air and the sound of our own careful breath. Through the vent slats I saw tires ease to a stop by my curb. Black sedan, windows dark as a lie. My knees ached. I blessed them for telling me I was still here. At the back corner, the lattice gave to my hand the way it always had for lost kittens and fallen tools. We slipped into the alley, pressed against the fence. A white service van rolled past and paused just long enough to be a wall. Aaliyah stepped out the driver's side like she'd been cut from the shadow of it. This way, she said. We have 90 seconds. We piled in, the 3 of us in the back among coils of cable and a bucket of paint rollers. As the doors shut, my old landline rang in the house we'd abandoned, a lonely bell calling a congregation that wasn't coming. Aaliyah gunned the engine. Henson setting a perimeter. We'll take you to a safe. She cut herself short, eyes jumping to the rearview mirror. No. I twisted to the back window. The black sedan had turned the corner behind us, low and sleek, closing distance. Another car joined from the side street. Silver SUV, familiar as a bad dream. Ethan's face flashed in my mind, then Robert's. I braced my hand on the metal wall as the van surged. Seat belts, Aaliyah snapped. Hold on. The SUV leapt forward, the sedan sliding to box us in, and up ahead, blue lights bloomed. 1 patrol car, then 2. But they weren't between us and danger. They were parked across the road, forming a barricade. Great, Linda said dryly. Now everybody wants to talk. Aaliyah's knuckles went white on the wheel. Not ours. The sedan's window rolled down. A man leaned out, calm as Sunday, lifted something small that caught the light, and the windshield bloomed a perfect spiderweb of cracks as the first shot hit. The bullet tore through the windshield like a lightning strike. Glass raining down, Aaliyah's shout swallowed by the engine's roar. She swerved hard left, the tires screaming against the wet asphalt. Linda ducked low, pulling Claire with her, while I threw my arm across them both like instinct could stop lead. The second shot missed, splintering the side mirror. Hold on, Aaliyah shouted, spinning the wheel. The van fishtailed, clipped a trash bin, then shot into a narrow lane between 2 buildings. I could feel every heartbeat slam behind my ribs. Another round cracked against the back door, metal whining. Who the hell are these people? Linda cried, voice high and raw. Cooper's cleanup crew, Aaliyah hissed. They don't want us alive long enough to testify. The lane opened to the river road, morning sun flashing through the cracked glass like broken mirrors. We weren't far from the wharf, a place Robert and I used to walk on Sundays, before the world started lying to us. Now it looked like salvation and trap all in one. The sedan was right behind us, black paint glinting, steady and precise. The SUV flanked our right, forcing us toward the pier. Claire sat frozen, tears cutting lines through the dust on her face. Mom, she whispered. I didn't know. I swear I didn't. I know, baby, I said, gripping her hand. But now you do, so keep your eyes open and your head low. Aaliyah slammed the brakes. Hold tight! The van screeched sideways, spinning half a turn before ramming into a stack of fishing crates. The sedan tried to mimic the move, but skidded on the wet pavement, smashing its front end into a pole. The SUV stopped short, its doors flying open. 2 men jumped out, dark suits, no badges, guns drawn. "Down!" Aaliyah shouted. We hit the floor just as a third shot ripped through the van's rear panel. Linda swore in a voice that could have raised the dead. Claire cried out, clutching her arm. Grazed, not bleeding deep. I tore my cardigan, wrapped it tight. "You'll live," I said. "Don't give them the satisfaction of hearing you scream." Sirens wailed in the distance, faint but coming closer. Aaliyah peeked up, caught sight of the police blockade still at the far end of the street. "They're faking jurisdiction," she muttered. "Those aren't city cops." "So who are they?" I asked. "The kind that disappear files," she said, eyes cold. "The kind that cleaned up after Robert." That sentence hit harder than the bullets. I felt something shift in me then, something heavy that had been waiting to rise. Fear gave way to fury, slow and deliberate. "He died because he tried to tell the truth," I said. "And now they want to bury it again." Aaliyah nodded. "Then let's make sure they fail." She kicked the driver's door open and rolled behind it, drawing her sidearm. "Stay down until I say." The 2 men advanced, cautious but confident. One shouted, "Hand over the evidence, and no one else gets hurt." Aaliyah answered with 3 sharp shots, controlled, warning fire. They ducked. I saw their silhouettes twitch in panic. "We've got 10 seconds, she hissed. I glanced at the water, the docks, the fishing boats tied loose. One small tugboat sat idling, its engine rumbling unattended. "Water," I said. "We take the water." She followed my gaze, assessed the distance. "Can you run?" I laughed, short, fierce. "I was running before you were born." "Then go." We bolted from the van, me, Linda, Claire clutching her arm, darting between crates and barrels. The air smelled of salt and diesel. Bullets struck wood behind us, splinters stinging my neck. "Keep moving," I shouted. Ethan's face flickered in my mind, the promise I'd made to see him safe again. That thought pushed me harder than fear ever could. Aaliyah covered us, firing short bursts as we reached the dock. I jumped the gap to the tugboat deck, knees jolting but holding. Linda followed with a curse that'd shame a sailor. Claire slipped. I caught her wrist, yanked her aboard. Aaliyah dove last, landing hard and rolling. "Go, go, go!" I rushed to the wheelhouse. The keys were still in the ignition, God bless lazy dock workers. The engine groaned, coughed, then roared awake. The boat lurched, ropes snapping free. The river opened in front of us like a throat. The sedan's surviving man ran to the edge, shouting into a phone. The SUV driver aimed again, one last chance, but Aaliyah fired first, shattering his windshield. He dove for cover as we pulled away from the pier, the river swallowing distance fast. The wind hit my face, sharp and alive. Savannah's skyline shimmered behind us, sunlight burning through the haze of gunpowder and memory. Claire clung to the railing, sobbing quietly. Linda wrapped an arm around her and said, "It's okay, sweetheart. Your mama's meaner than she looks." Aaliyah came up beside me, bruised but grinning. "You drive like you were born on the river." "Robert taught me," I said. "He said water remembers truth better than men." We rode in silence for a while, sirens fading behind us. I looked at the city receding, my house, my street, the ghosts we'd left standing. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. Aaliyah broke the quiet. "When we dock upriver, I'll upload the files. By morning, Cooper will be headline news." "Headlines fade," I said softly. "Justice doesn't." She nodded. "You really think we can bring him down?" "Oh, he's already falling," I said, gripping the wheel. "We're just making sure he hits the truth on the way down." The river curved wide, carrying us toward the marsh. Somewhere beyond those reeds, sirens turned to echoes, and just when I started to breathe again, a faint, impossible sound rose from the cabin below. A phone ringing. Not mine, not Aaliyah's, Robert's. The same broken ringtone echoing up through the steel deck like a ghost tapping on heaven's door. Linda's eyes widened. "You left that cursed thing on the van, didn't you?" I stared down the hatch. "No," I said slowly. "I put it in my purse." The ringing stopped. Then a single message buzzed across the small screen where I'd left it on the bench. "Check the riverbank at dawn. RW. Dawn came slow and golden, spreading over the Savannah River like a blessing that didn't quite trust itself to land. The tugboat drifted near the reeds, engine low, the city's noise nothing but a hum behind us. I stood on deck with the note still glowing on Robert's phone. Check the riverbank at dawn. His initials below it, RW, the same way he used to sign the birthday cards he left on my pillow. Linda leaned on the rail beside me, hair wild, eyes soft. You really think he's out there, Ellie? I shook my head, but it wasn't a no. I think some truths don't die with the people who carry them. Maybe this river's got a memory longer than we know. Behind us, Aaliyah worked her laptop over a portable hotspot, her fingers a blur. The files are uploading, she said. Every bank transfer, every fake inspection report, every cover-up. By noon, half the state'll see what Cooper's been doing. Claire sat wrapped in a blanket near the hatch, pale and quiet. The river breeze lifted strands of her hair across her face. They'll come for us, she said softly. They always do when men like him lose control. Let them try, I answered. I've got more fight in me than fear. Tell me in the comments what city you're watching this from, I say now, voice carrying that tired smile you get when you've seen too much. Because if my story reached you, sweetheart, it means justice travels farther than bullets. You listen to me now. Sometimes the end of the road isn't a grave. Sometimes it's a sunrise with your name written on it. We moored the boat near the bend where the old cypress trees leaned into the water like gossiping widows. The place was familiar. Robert and I had fished there every June, just the two of us, and the lazy hum of dragonflies. I stepped off the deck and felt the mud give under my shoes, warm and living. The air smelled of pine and silt. Over here, Aaliyah said, pointing to the shallow bank. Something glimmered near the roots of a cypress. Half buried under reeds lay a metal box the size of a lunch pail, rusted but solid. The initials RW carved faintly on the lid. My breath caught. He left this, I whispered. He knew someday I'd come looking. Aaliyah crouched and pried it open carefully. Inside were photographs, documents sealed in plastic, and one small cassette tape labeled in Robert's handwriting. For Ellie, when it's safe. My knees went weak. I sat right there in the mud and slipped the tape into the old recorder Aaliyah had brought from the van. The reels turned, a hiss of static, and then his voice, warm and steady, filled the air. Ellie, if you're hearing this, I didn't make it home. A pause, breath catching like he'd been running. I found proof they're burning properties for insurance, families losing everything while Cooper's people collect. Claire got mixed up helping with the paperwork, thinking it was legal. Don't blame her. She didn't know. But they found out I knew, and they'll come for me next. So I'm leaving this here by the river, our river. Because if anyone can finish what I started, it's you. The recording clicked off. For a long time, none of us spoke. Only the sound of the current moving, same as it had since before any of us were born. Claire was crying, quiet and broken. He tried to protect me, she whispered. I reached over and took her hand. Then honor him by standing with me now. She nodded, eyes fierce through the tears. I will. By noon, the news broke. Aaliyah's upload had gone viral. Headlines screaming about corporate arson, forged deeds, a firefighter whistleblower murdered for the truth. Alan Cooper's photo splashed across every channel, then footage of his arrest outside his glass tower downtown. His smug smile finally cracked when the cameras caught him in handcuffs. Detective Henson called soon after. It's over, he said. Your husband's name is clear. Not yet, I told him. Not till his story's told right. That evening we returned home. The house smelled of smoke from the night before, but it was still standing, stubborn like me. I walked through the kitchen where Linda's chair still sat overturned, the table scarred where the bomb had been taped. I touched the counter where Robert once set his coffee, and for the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel emptiness. I felt him here. Claire helped sweep the glass while Ethan arrived with groceries and a grin too wide for the room. Grandma, you're on TV, he said, laughing. They called you the Iron Widow of Savannah. I chuckled. Lord help me, that sounds like a metal band. When the house was quiet again, I stepped onto the porch. The sun dipped low, staining the sky orange and gold. A soft breeze moved through the pines, and for a moment I could almost hear Robert's voice beside me, teasing like he always did. "Told you the river remembers, Ellie." I closed my eyes and smiled. "You were right, love, and I made sure they'll never forget you." Somewhere across town, Cooper sat in a cell, headlines turning his empire to dust. And me? I finally slept without leaving the light on. Because justice isn't thunder. Not always. Sometimes it's a quiet morning, a cleared name, a phone gone forever silent. Now, if you're still listening, tell me, from what city are you hearing my story tonight? Maybe I'll find comfort knowing that the truth, like the river, reached you too.